Welcome to the RFP Success Show with host Lisa Rehurek, the #1 sought-after authority on RFP success. Each week, we bring you information, strategies, or resources to help you win more business through RFPs and have a little fun doing it. Let's get this week's episode started.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the RFP Success Show. I am your host, Lisa Rehurek, the #1 sought-after authority on RFP success. So today we're talking about productivity, and this is a teaching tip podcast where it's just me sharing a lesson or a few lessons with you, if you will, versus having a guest. And I wanted to do this one in particular because I get asked all the time how I am so crazy productive. And I really am. I can get a whole lot done. In 2018, people were asking me this all the time because I launched the podcast, I wrote a book, I was on a reality TV show, I rebranded my business, all while doubling my revenue and still really growing my business. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other things in there that I didn't even list off. But so people ask me this all the time, and I wanted to share with you some of my top things that help me be super productive. And some of these are going to be tangible, but most of them are not going to be tangible. They're going to be a little more intangible, and you're going to have to dig deep to but you're going to have to dig deep to get to this point. These are things that I'm really passionate about, and I have over the past 3 months been writing these down because, again, I get asked all the time. And I thought, well, what is it? What is it that I'm doing that is so super productive? Is it certain tools that I use? Sure. Yeah, I'm really good at tapping into tools and resources and things like that. But that really is not what it comes down to. So I'm going to share these tips with you and, implement what works for you. This didn't all start overnight for me, right? I started certain things and rolled out things as I got more comfortable. And definitely, share your comments with me. Come out to my Facebook page, a LinkedIn, wherever works for you, and talk to me about what's working and what's not working, and I'm happy to share as much as I can with you. So let's get started. The first tip, and you're going to hear this all over the business world, but it's so important to productivity. But the first tip is that you've got to know where you're going and what you ultimately want. Now, I'll tell you that this changes for me on a regular basis, and in the beginning parts of my business, I couldn't see the long runway. I couldn't see this out 12 months even. And I had to work off of, okay, what do I want in the next month? Okay, I want one new client in the next month or whatever that was. So you've got to know what you want and where you're going. And the reason that that's so important is because everything else I'm going to talk about pretty much hinges on that. If you don't know where you're going or what you ultimately want, you're going to get derailed. And derailment is probably one of the top 3 reasons that we're unproductive, because we can't make decisions and we flail all over the place and we get unfocused. So when we know what we want, we can stay the course. And I'm going to repeat this because it bears repeating and it's so important. If you don't know what you want long term, so now in my business, I know what I'm working for in the next 5 years, but it took me 2 to 3 years to get there. I know that now, but in that time where I was still trying to figure that out, I really had to work in that short term. What do I want this week? What do I want in the next month? I mean, there was a time that my business was in the shitter. I mean, I have not been shy to share that. And when your business is struggling, or when you're in a situation where you're really feeling in that struggling tight mode, it's hard to see into the future. So work with what you've got and figure out what you need for the next week or for the next month and start there. Okay? So that's number 1. The second thing is that I really know when I should do, ditch, or delegate. Okay? And what I mean by that is I know what I should do, the things that I should ditch, which means the things that are not of service to me and where I'm going. See that connection to how important it is to know where you're going? There's a lot of things we do on a regular basis that shouldn't be done. We're doing them because they're easy distractions for us, they're comfort zones for us. That's mostly why we do things we should ditch. So think about what you're doing that doesn't serve you, that isn't helping you towards your goal or towards that purpose, and ditch it. Then you've also got to know what to delegate. Now, depending on where you are in your business or in your, in your job, because I know a lot of you are proposal writers as well, you don't necessarily have anybody to delegate to. But if you do have people to delegate to, or if you can delegate, there are things you should not be doing. So delegate where you can. And you've got to be honest with yourself about it, because I'll tell you, there probably are more things you should be having other people do. If you are a yes man, yes woman, and there's probably a lot of you listening to this, because frankly, when we're in support positions, which for all of you proposal managers out there or proposal support people, you might be a little bit of a people pleaser. That's nothing to be ashamed of, but you have to control that, right? You've got to kind of get a control of it and not say yes to everything. So even when I'm talking about delegating, think about the things that you should not be taking on that are not your responsibility, that you say yes to because you're afraid of saying no. You've got to get control of those things too. So knowing what to do, ditch, and delegate, it really comes down to what's going to generate revenue, or what's going to help me move closer to my goals, or versus what's a waste of time, right? What is best for somebody else to do? What do I need to let go of? And that takes time to think through. I would write these things down. I actually have this little flow chart called the Do, Ditch, Delegate Roadmap, and it asks me certain questions. It's very specific to business owners, but really, it's going to take you 6 months to get really good at the Do, Ditch, Delegate. But I would start writing things down and really focusing on those things that you should be doing. That's where you need to focus your time, and that's going to help you be more productive. All right. Okay. The next thing is that I create focus hours. So there are certain things that I'm really good at, as are all of you, and come very easily, second nature. I can almost do in my sleep. I can do those while I'm watching a football game, or I can do those while, maybe listening to a podcast. Those are the things you can multitask on, right? But then there are things that are harder for us. They take more of our focus. They don't come super easily. And those are the things that I create focus hours for. And I create them so that, so for me, it's writing copy, writing marketing copy, writing content for a blog post, sometimes writing my trainings. Those are things that come a little bit harder for me. I have to really concentrate on those to organize my thoughts, to get into that space. And so I will create focus hours. So for 1 hour, my phone is in the other room. If I can actually not use my computer, I won't use it. Or I'll use an older computer where I don't get notifications, or I shut email down completely. And for that 1 hour, all I do is focus on that one thing. Okay? And you'd be shocked at how much stuff you can get done in 1 hour. It is amazing, but you got to really create that focus hour and cut off distractions. And if you work in an office with other people, if you can get other people on board with this so that you do one focus hour in the morning, one focus in the afternoon, or even if you do just one focus hour in the day, I promise you it's going to help you. If you can get other people on your team on board so that you put a little sign on your cubicle and say, I'm in focus hour right now, and everybody respects that, that's a really great kind of community thing that you can bring together, and everybody can grab a hold of that and own that process and be supportive of each other in that. So it's hard when you're in an office environment, and it's hard when you're home. I mean, I easily get distracted with my dogs, or, if my phone's not in the other room, if it dings or vibrates or anything, I automatically want to grab the phone and look at it. So I have to put it in the other room. So those focus hours are important. And then the other piece of those focus hours is to group like tasks together. And so, for example, for me, I like to have usually it's just a half a day of administrative type tasks, following up with clients, sending emails, just miscellaneous office work that I need. And the other thing is that I like to group most of my marketing type content tasks into one day. So while I might only have 1 or 2 focus hours in that day, all of my marketing is being done in that day, because you get momentum. And I don't know if you guys remember this. I might be aging myself here a little bit, but when we were young in our parks, they used to have this piece of playground equipment called the merry-go-round. And it was just a big chunk of steel, and you had to grab a hold of one of the bars and run around it to get the momentum going, to get it moving. And then once it got moving really fast, you could jump on and enjoy the ride. And that's kind of how it is with anything that we do. When we build up momentum, we can get a lot more done. And so if we can group like tasks together, then we really start building up that momentum that allows us to get a lot more done. The other thing that's really important for you to grab a hold of, and when I heard this shocked me, this statistic shocked me, but every time we get distracted or interrupted in something that we're doing, it takes us 10 or 15 minutes to fully re-engage back into that task. 10 to 15 minutes, that's crazy. So if you think that this happens, maybe, let's just say that happens 4 times in a day. And I know you all are laughing with me, because 4 times, don't we wish that's all that we got interrupted? But that's a loss of an hour right there. So that statistic shocked me, not just for me, but for how I now approach interrupting or distracting other people. Because, and again, we do that more when we're in an office environment, and I don't have that here because I work out of my house. But think about that, and think about how those focus hours and those grouping like tasks together can really, really help eliminate a whole bunch of that and give you some time back. Okay? So that's a pretty tactical piece, and that number 3 that I just gave you is really, really important. 3A and 3B, really. All right. The next one is, I am very radically honest with myself. And the reason that this comes into play is because when we're not honest with ourselves, we waste time dilly-dallying. We waste time on things that don't serve us. We waste time on telling ourselves crap that isn't true, whatever that is. So if you can get really radically honest with yourself, let me give you an example. I am radically honest with myself that while I need to be very hands-on with my finances, I am not good at them. And I understand them, but I don't want to be a numbers person. And so because I can be radically honest with myself, I delegate that task out. I can also be radically honest with myself that I can't do everything. I can't be everything to everybody. I used to think, when I first started my business, I would take on pretty much anything anybody would hire me for. Now I know there's a time and a place we've got to do that. But frankly, it got to a point where I was like, look, I'm just not really good at this, or I'm good at it, but I'm not great at it. Let me spend the time in the areas that I'm great at and farm out the other stuff. And again, I know not everybody can do that, but where you can do that, or where you can not take on somebody else's stuff because they asked you, that's, again, part of what I was saying earlier with the do, ditch, delegate, but it's important to be radically honest with yourself. All right. This next one is very much a lot of what I've been saying already, but it bears repeating. I really now understand what I'm great at, where I can multitask, and where I need that extra space for creativity. So I can be pretty heady. I'm a pretty pragmatic, logical person. I can be creative, but I've got to get into a completely different space for that. Kind of back to that marketing content that I was talking about. If I'm going to get creative in my marketing content, and creative and quippy in my writing my book, for example, I've got to get into a creative space. And it's a totally different space than I'm at when I'm in front of my computer, at my desk, really working in front of the whiteboard, in that type of space. So I understand where those places are, where those breaks need to be, and what the difference is, so that I can really not waste time. Now, don't get me wrong. Certainly, I still waste plenty of time here and there, but I also can feel if I'm pushing too hard, I'm wasting time overthinking shit instead of getting in my creative space, which is, again, a completely different place and time and process for me. And when I separate those things out, then I get into that creative mind much quicker. I waste less time, and then I can get rolling quicker. So, all of this, quite frankly, this is a little woo, but I would get a journal and start really tracking a lot of this. I didn't do it all in one place and time, but I'm giving you this information so you can probably do that on your own. And it's all in one place. So now you can start journaling on some of this, and you'll start taking baby steps towards getting a lot better at all of this. Okay. All right. Here's the next one. So I think we're on number 6 now. Yep, number 6. I make quick decisions. So the reason that I'm able to make quick decisions really come down to intuition and trust. So I really trust my intuition. I've learned how to listen to my intuition. And the reason that I can trust my intuition is because I know where I'm going and what I want. And my intuition, the closer you are to knowing what you want and all of that, your intuition steps in and helps you. But if your intuition doesn't really know where you want to go concretely, then it's going to be giving you mixed messages. So when you know, back to that number 1, you guys, if you know what you want and where you're going, you have a much more powerful opportunity to trust your intuition. And when you trust your intuition, you can make quicker decisions. You can take risks easier, because those risks are going to be based on some facts and figures and some knowledge of where you're going, and they're going to be based on your intuition versus just leaping out into the Grand Canyon without really knowing. That's why risk screws us up, you guys, is because we tend to leap without really having the basis for what we're leaping towards. You've still got to have, just because we're taking risks doesn't mean that they're not founded in a strong foundation. That's ultimately the best way to be taking risks. Anyway, I could go off on that topic on a whole other broadcast. But again, it kind of comes down to trusting, being in a position to trust your intuition so that you can make quick decisions. All right. Number 7, I take action. I take action. I don't just sit there and swim in it. So when we don't know what to do or we're feeling overwhelmed, we will procrastinate. That's where procrastination comes from. We don't know how to do it, or it feels too big, or we don't like it. Those are the top 3 reasons we procrastinate. So if it's something that we don't like, first off, tough shit. Sometimes we've just got to do stuff we don't like, so just figure out how to get it done. Just do it, because it's not going away. Or if it's something you don't like and you can delegate it or hire out for it, do that. Again, not everybody here is in a position to do that, so we just got to suck it up sometimes and do the things we don't like to do. If you're feeling overwhelmed by it, then the best thing to do, and this is kind of 7B, is think about what baby steps you can take to get something done. When we're overwhelmed, we're generally looking at something that looks more like a project than a task. So I'll give you an example. For the longest time, early in my business, I had build a website on my task list. Well, of course I would procrastinate on that because it was huge. That was a huge undertaking. There's hundreds and hundreds of smaller steps. So what I always tell people is break your task list down so that there's nothing on it that will take you more than 60 minutes to do. Okay? That way, you've broken it down. Now, is your task list going to grow? Yes. Don't let that overwhelm you. Make sure you've got due dates and make sure you're realistic about it. But it's going to help you move forward. You're then in a much better position to get tasks done on a regular basis. You can get 2 or 3 or 7 tasks done in a day, depending on what else you have on your calendar. But those big projects you can't get done in a day, and you'll procrastinate on them all day long. So you want to make sure you break those down into 60-minute or less chunks. It can be less. It can be something like buy the URL, which is going to take you like 2 minutes. So that's really important to break your task list down. So if you're overwhelmed, then that's really going to help you. And if it's something that you don't know how to do, please, for the love of Pete, ask somebody or Google it. I tell you, I was, again, early in my business, and this is probably 7 years ago, I used iMovie to record my videos, and then I was editing them. Everything's so much easier now, but back then it was really hard, and it was the middle of the night, so I couldn't ask anybody. I was stuck on one little thing, and I just Googled it. I found a YouTube video. There was some little kid, like 10 years old, giving these amazing instructional videos on how to do exactly what I needed to do. And it took me 5 minutes once I got his video because it was fantastic. Maybe it took me 15 minutes to search and find the right video. Then I found him. He explained it really well. 5 minutes and I was done. So otherwise, I would have procrastinated. I would have held off until the next day. Then I would have had other reasons to avoid doing it. Just ask somebody or Google it, look it up. There's so many resources out there for you. So those 3 things, if you're procrastinating, tap into one of those 3 things. Why are you procrastinating? And then you've got to take action on it. So keep moving forward, take action. All right, so that was number 7, A and B. Number 8 is that you got to let go of perfection. So I am a recovered perfectionist, and here's the way you've got to do that. You've got to think about high standards over perfection. Do I still have high standards? Heck yeah. But I have high standards where it matters. There are some things that don't matter. Nobody's going to see it. It's just for my purposes only. Why am I wasting all this time trying to be perfect in what I am and who I am and what I do? It just is a waste of time because perfection really doesn't exist. So you've got to let go of perfection and hold on to excellence or high standards or whatever resonates with you, but you've got to let go of perfection. And then last but not least is kind of my mantra that I've recently adopted, and I can't remember where I heard this, but I love it so much. And this isn't a religious thing because I'm not a religious person. This is just more of a, however spirituality hits you, whether you are religious or not. But I have more faith than fear. And that didn't come overnight, but I have faith in where I'm going. I have faith in who I am and what I want. This goes back to that number one thing that I said, right? I have more faith that I can get this done and that I can get where I'm going than I do have fear. So I don't let fear paralyze me. If the fear is creeping in and it's slowing me down or it's stopping me, I have to sit back and question, okay, what am I afraid of? And how can I make sure that my faith in myself and my faith in the universe is going to lead me in the right direction? And, it kind of ties into almost everything else that I've talked about here, especially some of the more intangible things like your intuition and trusting your intuition. So you've got to get to the point where you have more faith than fear, because that faith is going to keep driving you forward. So all of that is really how I stay productive. And I also know what motivates me, and I just thought of this. It's not on my list, but I'm going to add it as a number 10. I also know very much what motivates me. And I am motivated by efficiency. I'm motivated by recognition. And I'm motivated. There's a whole bunch of things I'm motivated by, but I know what I'm motivated by. And because of that, that allows me to make sure that I've got those things placed throughout my day that will speak to my motivation, that will help me drive forward with my motivation, and it keeps me going. It helps me from stopping or slowing down. So there are 10 things right there that I gave you guys. I know it's a lot. Again, this has progressed over time. I would say over the 8 years that I've been a business owner, I've been much more aware of them. But of course, they've been being developed throughout my entire life. And you've got to tap into what works for you. But I think you can take this as a roadmap and figure out which pieces of this, how these pieces fit into your life, and how you can use these tips to help you be more productive. And again, I would love, love, love to hear from you. So, on Facebook, my Facebook page is RFP Success. On LinkedIn, I'm Lisa Rehurek. I have a LinkedIn community called the RFP Success Community on LinkedIn. I'd love for you to come out there and talk to me. Tell me where your productivity challenges are. Tell me, ask me any questions that you have. I would love to hear from you because I am really passionate about, as I was saying, I'm very driven and motivated by efficiency. and productivity plays a role in that. So if there's any way I can help you, I would love to do that. So good luck. Looking forward to hearing from you. All right, you've been listening to the RFP Success Show, and I am so happy that you chose to be with us today, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye, everybody.
You have been listening to the RFP Success Show with RFP expert Lisa Rehurek, author of the RFP Success book. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, make sure you click the subscribe button so you don't miss a show. And thanks for spending time with us today.